Hello and welcome to the League of Women Voters of Oregon's Candidate Forum. During the course of the next hour, we will hear from the candidates seeking your vote for chair of the Washington County Board of Commissioners and your vote for Washington County District Attorney in the May 17th primary election. The League of Women Voters of Oregon is a grassroots, nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government in order to build better communities statewide. The League works to increase understanding of major policy issues and to increase participation in the political process. Our co-sponsor for this event is the Washington County Public Affairs Forum. Founded in 1956, the Forum provides a common meeting place for the interchange of ideas by bringing together community leaders, members, and guests to discuss issues of relevance to Washington County, the metro region, and the state of Oregon. For additional information on upcoming programming related to the May election, please visit washingtoncountyforum.org. I am Eric Schmidt, and I will be your moderator for this candidate forum. I am a dues-paying member of the League of Women Voters, and I am a dues-paying member of the Washington County Public Affairs Forum. It is indeed my great honor to be here tonight to be a part of this event. It's my job to make sure that everyone plays by the rules and that we get out of Beaverton City Hall on time. The rules are pretty simple. Each candidate will have the opportunity to deliver a 2-minute opening statement. Following the opening statements, I will be asking the candidates questions that were submitted by the League and Public Affairs Forum members. The candidates will have 1 minute and 30 seconds, 1 minute 30 seconds for their answers to those questions. Volunteer timers are here in council chambers to make sure the time is adhered to. After the questions and answers, each candidate will have the opportunity to deliver a 2-minute closing statement. With all that said, and with our thanks to Tualatin Valley Community Television, TVC-TV, for airing and recording this event, let us begin with the candidates for Washington County District Attorney. They are Kevin Barton and Brian Decker. By the toss of a coin, Mr. Decker, you will go first with your opening statement. You have 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. I'm Brian Decker. I was a federal prosecutor in President Obama's Department of Justice, and I've been a public defender for over 4 years here in Washington County. With my broad experience across the criminal courts, I know how the criminal justice system ought to work, and I've seen how right here in our community it is failing. 4 years ago, my opponent, Kevin Barton, promised responsible reforms, but he has broken that promise. Gun violence is up, community trust is down. Washington County has the most fanatically punitive and expensive district attorney's office in the state, and a revolving door at the jail. Now Kevin Barton says, if you vote for him again, you'll get more of the same. Mr. Barton claims to help victims and survivors, but in reality, he threatens, bullies, locks them up to get his way, and ignores or doesn't even talk to them in the case of 27 women at Coffee Creek Prison who were victims of sexual assault. Oregon courts have even said that Mr. Barton violated the Constitution when he struck a black man from a jury for racist reasons. In 2022, in Washington County, that kind of prosecutorial misconduct ought to be disqualifying. More of the same? I've had enough. We can build a collaborative system, a well-functioning system that prioritizes prevention. We can hold accountable all those who are responsible for crime while really listening to victims and survivors, as I did when I volunteered for victims of domestic violence.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Mr. Barton, 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Eric. Good evening, everyone who's listening. My name's Kevin Barton. I'm the Washington County District Attorney, and I'm running quite simply to keep Washington County safe. I was elected 4 years ago by an overwhelming majority of Washington County voters, and I won my election by nearly 40 points. And I ran on a promise then, which is the same promise I'm running on today, and that is to prosecute criminals, to protect victims and protect our community, and to pursue responsible reforms. And in my 4 years as DA, I've done just that. That's why Washington County today is the safest large county in Oregon. We have a crime rate that's 30% below the state average, that's 50% below neighboring Multnomah County. And that's not to say that there aren't challenges. There certainly are. We're dealing with unprecedented property crime that's increasing. We're dealing with an addiction epidemic that's skyrocketing. We're dealing with homelessness that's out of control. And we're dealing with crime from Portland that's seeping into our community, which is why we need a DA who has the trust and the experience and knows the responsible things that need to be done as DA. I'm proud to say I'm endorsed by every single police chief in the county, by the sheriff of Washington County, by our last 2 United States attorneys for the District of Oregon, by Governor Kulongoski, by business leaders throughout Washington County, including the Washington County Chamber of Commerce, Tim Boyle, Pat Reeser, by 10 current and former mayors, and by Democrats and Republicans in elected office and community groups. I'm a nonpartisan DA running for a nonpartisan office to keep you safe. And on top of all that, I live here too, and I want to make sure this community is as safe for you as it is for my family. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barton. Time now to go to the questions that we have from the League members and Public Affairs Forum members. I will begin with the first question for you, Mr. Barton, and then we'll go in reverse order later on. And that question is, people in jail found unable to aid and assist in their own defense due to their mental illness should not wait more than 7 days for admission to the state hospital for treatment. Recently, Disability Rights Oregon found that in the Washington County Jail, those people are currently waiting up to 40 days for treatment or admission to the state hospital. What steps should or can the district attorney take to reduce prosecution of people with severe mental illness whose crime is often low level, nonviolent, and primarily due to their mental illness or mental state?
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. So this issue of mental health in our system is a significant and pressing issue that's not new today. It's been growing as time has gone on. As DA, about 2.5 years ago, I actually approached our fellow community leaders, leaders in the defense bar, leaders in the court, leaders in the sheriff's office, to establish a brand new program which we instituted called Rapid Fitness to Proceed. And the goal of that program is to ensure that no one in jail waits any longer than they have to in order to be evaluated for their fitness to proceed forward. It's been a resounding success by everyone all around the system agrees it's a positive thing. It's saved the county money and it's saved people time sitting in custody while they're waiting. Mental health issues, addiction issues are a serious challenge for our system, and what we need to do is devote more resources upstream before someone commits a crime so that we're dealing with fewer people downstream in the DA's office and in the court system. In many ways, the DA's office is like the emergency room of our community. People come here after something bad has happened. And just like an emergency room can't address the harm that caused someone to have that accident, a DA's office also can't impact who's coming in the door, but we can work with leaders to deal with them in a more efficient manner and to hopefully have some upstream impacts that can reduce the number of mental health issues we're dealing with. And that's what I've done as DA in Washington County.
Thank you. Mr. Decker, would you like me to repeat the question?
That's fine. I think I got it. Thank you.
You bet.
Addiction, mental illness, homelessness, poverty, these are root causes and drivers of a tremendous amount of what we see coming through the criminal justice system. When it comes to these problems, we need to be prioritizing prevention. Now, I just heard Mr. Barton say that we need to invest in upstream resources so that we don't see these problems coming into the jails. But the truth is, over the last 4 years, Kevin Barton has taken more resources away from the general fund and diverted it into prosecution. He has increased the prosecutor's budget by 29%. He is the highest paid district attorney in the state, and his 2 chief deputies are number 2 and 3 highest paid employees of Washington County. We are getting bad results out of these costs that are imposed. We are not solving mental illness problems. Instead, we have a jail filled with people who have problems with mental illness. We cannot be criminalizing mental illness. We need to be diverting these people from the system much earlier. We need to open up our diversion programs to a wider array of people so that it is a first resort, not a last resort. We cannot keep running things in this completely inefficient way.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. This next question goes to you, Mr. Decker, first. Adults in custody who currently lack representation is a crisis, not only in the criminal justice system, but for the community as a whole. While some of this is the result of a bottleneck of cases due to limitations during the COVID pandemic, which we all hope will eventually readjust, some of it can be attributed to other aspects of a strained and overburdened system. How will you, as district attorney, work to ensure that adults in custody receive the representation due them in a more timely fashion?
Well, this is an important question, and it's important because in our criminal justice system, we need people working in all of the roles as best as possible, and we need those roles to be fully resourced. The district attorney is an essential part of the system, but the district attorney can't do things alone. We also need a fully funded public defense system, and we need to have a district attorney who is running cases through the court efficiently, not having people wait around in jail for months before they finally plead guilty and then get access to the rehabilitation services that they need. My opponent, Mr. Barton, recently complained about the problem with overworked public defenders by blaming it on the public defenders and saying that they were just not showing up in court. He also called a recent study that showed that we need a tremendous amount of investment in new public defenders based on fantastical numbers, according to Kevin Barton, and said that he would charge every crime that comes through the door. Of course, saying he charge every crime that comes through the door apparently doesn't include charging sexual assault on a prison nurse at Coffee Creek who sexually assaulted 27 women. Those charges had to be brought by the federal government, the Justice Department that I used to work in. Mr. Barton's approach is nonsensical. He's unable to see the forest for the trees.
Thank you. Would you like me to repeat the question, Mr. Barton?
No, there's no need.
Thank you.
I want to start by saying I absolutely support ensuring that defense attorneys and the defense bar has the resources to do their job. There's a state agency that's in charge of doing that, and that state agency is simply not doing its job, and I think that they ought to be held accountable for them not doing its job. I'm on a work group right now with our presiding judge and members in the defense bar to do all we can to ensure that that works. The real issue here, though, that I want to get to is Mr. Decker. When I hear Decker, I think defund, because Brian Decker advocated publicly to defund the Washington County Sheriff's Office, to defund the Washington County DA's office, and to abolish the Oregon prison system. These are extremist views that have no place in Washington County. Mr. Decker's colleagues at his law firm asked me to stop prosecuting property crimes in Washington County that are at the misdemeanor level. That means when your package is stolen from your porch, when your car is broken into, when you're a business owner and there's a shoplift, Mr. Decker's colleagues don't want me to prosecute that crime. And there's a word for what that means for our community, and that word is Portland. It's exactly what's happening in Portland. It's that type of extremist, irresponsible behavior that will lead Washington County down the same inevitable path to chaos and a decrease in safety. And as long as I'm the DA, I will never let that happen.
Thank you, Mr. Barton.
Excuse me, Eric, may I respond to the mischaracterization?
Not at this point. You have a closing statement. You can do it then.
Thank you.
Thank you. This next question goes to you, Mr. Barton, and we've talked about it a little bit here. People with mental health issues and substance abuse issues often end up in the criminal justice system. Should these people be incarcerated, or should they be treated for their issues?
Thank you. The short answer is it depends. A person with a mental health issue is dealing with significant challenges, and the system needs to be able to respond and address those. But a person with a mental health issue with a knife or a gun or someone who presents a serious public safety threat is every bit as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than someone without mental health issues. So the system needs to have the flexibility to be able to address these issues. What I've advocated for is addressing these issues in as upstream a manner as possible, and that's through a use of what we call specialty and treatment courts. Washington County is a statewide leader in the use of specialty and treatment courts, and under my leadership as DA, I've started at least 3 of them: a Veterans Treatment Court, a Rapid Fitness to Proceed Court for mental health people, and launched 2 months ago a mental health diversion program. All of these issues to try and address mental health issues before a crime is committed. And under my leadership, by addressing those mental health issues before the crime is committed, the community is safer.
Thank you. Mr. Decker.
You know how many people Mr. Barton has let into that mental health diversion court that opened 2 months ago? It's a nice round number: 0. We're not maximizing our use of these alternatives programs. We're not maximizing our use of rehabilitation. Instead, under Kevin Barton's tenure, we are sending more people to Oregon's prisons for more years than any other county in the state. Talk about upstream solutions. Downstream solutions is all Kevin Barton has been doing. But I need to respond to a mischaracterization from the earlier statement. Mr. Barton is using fear tactics. He is mischaracterizing everything I have said, and I want to be absolutely clear. I have been consistent. We need to fully fund essential police services to solve and investigate serious crimes and to protect when there are violent emergencies. And we need jails and prisons to hold people who are too dangerous to be out among us. What we don't need is to just keep divesting from the services in the community that are going to prevent crime before it happens. That's what's happened in Washington County. When Kevin Barton increases the budget of the Washington County District Attorney's Office, we see cuts to housing, health, and human services, cuts to treatment services, cuts to housing. Those are the kind of things that we need in the community that are going to address these issues, like mental illness, and it's not happening under Kevin Barton.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. Next question is for you, and the question is, what makes a community safe? We hear a lot about gun violence and homelessness and rising crime, along with mental health issues and drug addiction these days. Is Washington County a safe place, and what should the district attorney be doing to make it safer?
Washington County needs to be safer than it is. Violent crime is up. Gun crime is up 34% in Mr. Barton's term in office in Washington County. Most of the crimes that Kevin Barton's office prosecutes are folks, residents, right here in Washington County. We have a homegrown violence problem. Kevin Barton wants to talk about Portland. He wants to talk about crime seeping in from over there. He wants to talk about this boogeyman, and it's the same tired, old scare tactics that we have seen since Nixon and Reagan and Willie Horton on through the Trump administration, because that's the only crime politics he knows. He wants you to be afraid because it distracts you from his record here in Washington County, which is a failure due to his mismanagement. We need to be doing more to protect ourselves in the community with treatment programs, with housing programs, with job training and education. We need to be prioritizing going after massive harms like wage theft and environmental crimes, the kinds of things that are really harming us in our community. Only then will we solve this decades-old crime problem. Only then will we break this cycle of more of the same. We need to do better. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect somehow something will change.
Thank you. Mr. Barton.
People know what safety is. Safety is being safe. Safety is feeling safe. Safety means knowing when you park your car, it's going to be there when you get back. When you drop your kids off at school, they'll be safe during the day. When you leave your home in the morning, no one will go into it before you get home to it at night. And I ask people this: do you feel safe when you're driving in Portland? Do you feel safe in Multnomah County? Do you feel safer in Washington County? Now, we're dealing with issues region-wide: addiction issues, homeless issues, mental health issues. But under my leadership as DA, what we've done is drawn a firm line between how things are handled in Portland and how things are handled here. Now I want to talk about Mr. Decker. Mr. Decker likes to not talk about Portland, just like he doesn't like to talk about his deleted Twitter account, which he deleted just before he ran for DA. He doesn't like to talk about a nonprofit he started to call for the defunding of our sheriff and the defunding of the very office he's running for, the DA's office. These are inconvenient truths for him because they were said at a time when he thought people would think they're good ideas, and they're just not. Nobody wants to defund the police. Nobody wants to defund the DA. Nobody wants to abolish prisons. People need to feel safe and be safe, and that means being transparent and honest, not hiding your record and denying what you've said.
Mr. Barton, the next question goes to you. Both of you have used the word reform in your current campaigns. Please define what you mean by reform, and how would it be implemented if you're elected district attorney?
Thank you. I use the phrase responsible reform, and that's done quite intentionally because I don't believe reform for reform's sake is a good idea. We've seen the failed results of that in Multnomah County, in Los Angeles, in Seattle, in Philadelphia, and I think just reforming and tearing things down are a bad idea. Responsible reform, though, is a good idea, and under my time as DA, I can point to my track record of reforms that we've done. I established a domestic violence unit to focus on protecting DV victims. I established a cold case unit to focus on cases that hadn't been solved, that are sexual assault cases and homicide cases going back to the 1970s. I started a hate crimes team here in Washington County, and when the county didn't have the money to help me start it, I sought out a federal grant to be able to do it. I started a Veterans Treatment Court, 2 different mental health courts. I initiated Oregon's first and only Oregon Diversity Legal Job Fair to help increase the diversity in our legal profession, in DA's offices, in public defenders' offices like my opponent's former office, and in law firms across the state. I work with the Muslim Educational Trust and diverse community groups on a program called Building Bridges of Understanding in our community, and I'm working to establish something called a Family Peace Center, which will help us address the impact of what's known as ACEs. That's trauma that kids experience so that we can deal with less fallout down the road when they grow up to become adults. I've done all of that responsible reform while keeping our community safe and working through COVID.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Decker, your answer, please.
Thank you. The choice in this race is clear, and it is a choice between change and more of the same. 4 years ago, Kevin Barton promised the same responsible reforms. He's now saying he is for now. If he was going to be a reformer, he would have reformed things. Instead, we have gone in the other direction. We are now the most punitive district attorney's office in the state. We were number 4 when he started. Other counties have gotten serious about reducing mass incarceration. Other counties have gotten serious about emphasizing rehabilitation and crime prevention. And Washington County has been extreme in the tough on crime, anti-reform direction. Mr. Barton is the most vocal right-wing opponent of reform efforts statewide. He even personally opposed a survivor defendants bill that would have given defendants a credit in front of a judge when they were personally previously a victim of domestic violence. That's not on the side of victims. That's just on the side of more incarceration, because that's who Kevin Barton is. He is not neutral. He is extreme. He gets most of his funding from right-wing donors. And he had a Republican fundraiser 2 weeks ago tonight. He can't hide behind his nonpartisan label when he shows his true colors.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I think it would be an understatement to say that we could go another hour on this, and I wish we could. This has been fascinating, and thank you both for being here. It's time now for your closing statements, 2 minutes apiece, and Mr. Barton, we will start with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric, for this opportunity, and thank you to all who are listening and watching. This election is your opportunity, and it's your opportunity to have your voice be heard. If you've been frustrated by what you've seen happening on television, by what you've been watching happening to our region as Portland has fallen into chaos, if you've been frustrated by politicians who don't act or by politicians who lead by deceit, now is your chance to take action, to keep our county safe, to hold criminals accountable, to protect crime victims in our community, to make sure that that word responsible is always in front of the word reform. If you believe in those things, and if you believe in them along with every single police chief and the sheriff and the police associations and the mayors and the other leaders, I'm your DA. My opponent is telling you lies. I can't respond to every lie he said, but I can tell you that he wants the policies of Portland. And the good news for him is that after he loses this race, 2 years from now, he can run for DA in Multnomah County. See, I first met him when he called me to ask me, reached out to ask me for advice about how he could become a judge. And even Kate Brown said no to him to being a judge. And then the next time I heard his voice was when he testified in front of our county commissioners asking for dramatic cuts to the sheriff's office and the DA's office budget. And the commissioners said no to that. And then I met him again when he decided to run for DA. I stand for prosecuting criminals, protecting victims, pursuing reforms, ensuring that this is a responsible, safe approach in our DA's office. And I'm not just doing it because I like it, I'm doing it because I live here too. My wife and I are raising our family here. I've got 3 kids, middle school and elementary school. So I quite literally have skin in the game. I do not want our community to fall into chaos, and I want you to be safe along with me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Decker, 2 minutes for your closing statement, please.
Thank you. More of the same is exactly what you get if you vote for my opponent. That means another 4 years of failing victims and survivors, like those 27 women at Coffee Creek. That means another 4 years of fear, lies, and bullying tactics. 4 more years of rising gun violence and plummeting community trust. 4 more years of a chief prosecutor that has blatantly violated our Constitution to strike a black man from a jury. We can't tolerate another 4 years of more of the same. We heard a lot of lies, fear, and bullying tactics from Kevin Barton here tonight. In fact, I don't know if he was lying or if he just forgot, but the first conversation we had was about how his office, what his office's plan is for holding police witnesses accountable when they have lied in the past. And what I learned during that conversation years ago was, unlike my office when I was a federal prosecutor, his didn't really have one. I am proud to be the only candidate that has received endorsements from the Washington County Democrats and the Willamette Women Democrats, the Working Families Party, and the Independent Party of Oregon. I am proud to be endorsed by organizations like Pro-Choice Oregon, Latino Network, the Beaverton Education Association, and many more. I'm proud to be endorsed by over 60 elected officials and 50 community leaders from across Washington County, including our current mayor of Beaverton, Lacey Beatty, city councilors and school board members from Banks to Sherwood, Hillsborough, Cornelius, Tualatin, Tigard, and the whole county. To see a full list, go to deckerforda.com. It is time for a change. When your ballot comes in May, vote Decker for DA.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. Thank you, Mr. Barton. It has really been enlightening. I appreciate both of you being here tonight. The League of Women Voters and the Washington County Public Affairs Forum appreciate your participation in this event.
Thank you.